very warm welcome to a special edition of News with Tonga this week. Making headlines, His Serene Highness Prince Berehake calls on government to relook at Tonga's act, which requires fruit-bearing trees to be planted on tax allotments. Prime Minister Lord Ivano arrives at Whamotu International Airport on Wednesday afternoon. 2 Chinese people keep in police custody for using forged Tongan passports, and Ministry of Health urges locals not to take Tongan traditional medicine for it adds up problems with the breast cancer. These and more stories later on in this bulletin. I'm Fatai Whainga with your news for tonight. His Serene Highness Prince Berehake calls on the government to relook at Tonga's act which requires fruit-bearing trees to be planted on tax allotments. He made the appeal as guest of honour at an event to mark World Food Day. The theme is Sustainable Food Systems for Food Security and Nutrition. Sinlatu was then filed this report.
Speaking from the Ministry of Agriculture, Food, Forestry and Fisheries premises at Tauliki, His Serene Highness Prince Berehake says Tonga's first monarch, King George I, visited Australia and was surprised to see some places where people queue for food. This initiated food security for Tonga.
And that is the main reason why, when he returned back to Tonga, to make a policy of the first government of food security, because he noticed that food security is national security. Our food security, which is memorized, is run all over the world from FAO, but in our case, it's a lot deeper than that. After a couple of decades, the government also made an act which was to, for every api or tax allotment, they have to plant a certain amount of fruit trees and various other trees. That seems to be lapsed as the years went by with new short-term cash crops. But I think it's a policy acting Prime Minister that the government should look at for the longer term food security of this country.
In a speech from the acting Prime Minister, Honourable Samuel Vaipulu, he passed on a message from the Director General of the Food and Agriculture Organisation, or FAO.
Today, we can celebrate a new forwarding number of people who are suffering from hunger. In 2012, we estimated that 870 million people were undernourished. This year, the number fell to about 840 million. That means that almost 30 million fewer people hungry in the world. This is very encouraging, but we must not forget that 12% of the population still suffers from hunger in the 21st century. That means 1 in every 8 human beings. So while we celebrate the following hunger, we must push harder. The result of the past 2 years showed that we can achieve the Millennium Development Goal to reduce by half the prevalence of hunger between 1990 and 2050.
A display of local food crops, fruits and other items were portrayed at the program. Prizes were awarded to the best stalls. The Chief Executive Officer of the Ministry, Losaline Maasi, welcomed the guest of honor and the gathering, emphasizing the importance to work closely together to secure a sustainable food system. During the program, His Serene Highness unveiled the new 3-phase PowerPoint stations. World Food Day was established to sustain people's food needs and to reduce the number of hungry population worldwide. Today also marks the establishment of the Food and Agriculture Organization, or FAO.
His Serene Highness Prince Berehake and the acting Prime Minister of Tonga, Honourable Samuel Vaipulu, and foreign diplomats touring the sites to look at the stalls, which was prepared by related sectors of the Ministry of Agriculture, Food, Fisheries and Forestry, and other related sectors from the community. Reporting for Television Tonga News, I'm Sinilato.
The Honourable Speaker of Parliament, Lord Fafanua, this week welcomed the Prime Minister, Lord Duverneau, back to Parliament after he was away representing Tonga in international meetings before taking a special 2 weeks sick leave.
The Prime Minister arrived at the Whaamotu International Airport. He confirmed to Radio and Television Tonga News that he had suffered a minor blockage of blood to the heart and not a mild stroke, as revealed in a previous parliamentary discussion. He shared that he was fortunate to have access to proper treatment and has recovered well. The Prime Minister also gave thanks to God and everyone who had prayed for his quick recovery. He adds that this will not affect his duties, but it has made him more aware to take better care of his health and heed the doctor's orders. Lord Tuivakano was welcomed at the Whaamotu International Airport by the Deputy Prime Minister Sami Waipulu, Minister of Justice Clive Edwards, Minister of Police and Inland Revenue Sothifa Tutafaiva, the Secretary of the Ministry of Foreign Affairs Vainga Tone, and the Secretary and Acting Secretary to Cabinet Paula Ma'u. Also at the airport was Lady Tuivakano and their grandchildren. A special prayer service was held at the airport to welcome back the Prime Minister. Several prayer services were held later at the Prime Minister's residence at Golofo'o, and one led by the Prime Minister's Office and Ministry of Information and Communication. For Television Tonga News, I'm Sinilato.
From Parliament, the Acting Prime Minister, Honourable Sami Waipulu, this week, and has been now the Deputy Prime Minister, with the arrival of His Lordship, Lord Duverneau, asked the Chairman of the Whole House Committee not to discuss in Parliament any information that will justify the allegations published in his Skelea newspaper. He made this statement during deliberations on the Ministry of Infrastructure's Annual Report 2012. The statement was made by the Acting Prime Minister Sami Waipulu as the Ōtapu People's Representative No. 1 Aklis Pohiva had asked for additional details on various aid donations made to the government which were not disclosed in the annual report. Pohiva says China had donated more vehicles to the government, where one vehicle was used by the Prime Minister and registered in an individual's name. When he questioned about the vehicle being privately registered, it was transferred back to government. Pohiva adds that a large amount of wires were also brought in as a donation from China in 2011. He told the House he believes that Sami Waipulu had taken some of the wires and sent it to Vava'o. He asked the House to list and clarify all the aid donations made by China and what it's used for. In response, the Acting Prime Minister Sami Waipulu told Pohiva that the wire he had used, he had worked for and purchased himself, including the tax and freight costs. He also showed the receipts to the Inland Revenue and Tax Ministry. Waipulu also told Pohiva not to use false information in Parliament. Furthermore, Waipulu told the chairman of the Whole House Committee they've had enough of false allegations made by Parliamentarian No. 1 and have taken him to the court several times for false allegations. In the meantime, Pohiva told the House he had submitted a letter of inquiry to the Minister of Inland Revenue and Tax but has not received a response yet. The chairman of the Committee of the Whole House, Sonia Philly, replied that there is a parliamentary procedure to adhere to. If a letter has not been replied to within 14 days, the person can submit a complaint to the Speaker of the House. However, the Minister of Revenue Services, Sothifa Tutafaiva, reminded the members of the House that in the Revenue Services Act, employees are not allowed to disclose any information in regards to people's work-related matters with the ministry, especially if it's an individual request. Again in Parliament, the Amendment Bill No. 4 of 2013 on the Act of Constitution of Tonga has been passed on the Committee of the Whole House for further deliberations based on a recommendation from the Minister of Education and Training, Dr. Anatau Filongaki. The amendment bill was submitted to the Office of the Speaker of the Parliament by the Ōtapu People's Representative No. 5, Dr. Isaac Eke. The Amendment Bill Number 4 of 2013 on the Act of Constitution aims to amend the current Constitution on the Prime Minister's election system. Tonga People's Representative Number 5, Dr. Isaac Eke, told the Speaker and members of the House that the bill will allow the people to elect the Prime Minister after both people and nobles representatives are voted into Parliament. Dr. Eke says he had suggested this bill 2 weeks after an announcement of the results of the elections. Therefore, all members who were elected to the House can challenge the Prime Minister's position, but they have to explain to the public their main objectives, vision, and why they want the position. This is to make people well informed of the candidates to the Prime Minister's position before voting for the most appropriate candidate. The bill also states that if there is a tie in the result of the Prime Minister's position, then members of the House will have to choose one of them to the role. The bill also states in order to submit a vote of no confidence to Parliament, the submission must be accompanied with reasonable grounds or good reasons, such as the need for a stable government or good governance. Meanwhile, Eke also described in a bill about another amendment to be made to Clause 51 of the Act of Constitution. This refers to the authority of the Prime Minister, which allows him or her to appoint 4 members of the Cabinet from outside from the Parliament if needed. He told the House that he does not believe in the grounds for this clause, which is an appointment made from outside due to a lack of expertise among parliamentarians. He believes representatives elected to Parliament are all experts in their own respective fields. After the first reading of the bill in Parliament, 10 members voted for the bill while 2 were against it. The Education and Training Minister then recommended for it to be passed to the Committee of the Whole House for further deliberations, in which all the members agreed to. The Constitution of Tonga allows individuals to speak freely to the media as it is their right. The statement was made by the Honourable Justice Minister Clive Atwood in Parliament. However, the Director of the Ministry of Communications and Information, Palamao, says this contradicts the policy of content disseminated through radio and television. If that information affects or refers negatively to a religion or faith, that media outlet can be shut down. There seems to be contradictions between Tonga's laws pertaining to actions to be taken towards any form of broadcasting outlet which disseminates programs which may defame or speak negatively against a religion or faith. The Honourable Minister of Justice Clive Atwood in Parliament said that the government cannot do anything or take any action against an individual nor broadcasting station that broadcasts a program which speaks about a religion or faith unless that information or program directly breaches Tonga's laws. The Justice Minister clarified this in response to questions raised in Parliament in past weeks over the issue. Mr. Atwood says the Constitution states that all individuals have the right to speak freely or have the right to freedom of expression under the protection of the Constitution of Tonga. However, in an interview with the Director of the Ministry of Information and Communication, Palamao, this morning, he says the Code of Contents outlined in a Freedom of Information policy under Tonga's Communications Act 2000 states that all forms of media abstain from any form of content or views that might affect others. This issue was raised previously in Parliament by Tonga People's Representative Number 9, Felicito Po. He said the matter was brought to his attention by people from his constituency who are concerned over some of the religious programs broadcast by the DPN television station. In a previous interview of Television Tonganese with the manager of the DPN Broadcasting Network, Pastor Barry Taukolo, he claims that all his programs are based on a Bible, which is the truth and is not intended to affect anyone's beliefs. Meanwhile, Mr. Mao says this is not the first concern received over the DPN's program, but it is possible for them to shut down any forms of medium that does not abide by the law, if necessary. The Ministry of Health urges locals never to take traditional medicine because it will never heal nor cure breast cancer, but will only contribute to the problem. This was revealed during the Breast Cancer Bink Luncheon fundraise at the Cynic Hotel in Whamoto last Saturday. Whanua Veikosa reports.
Her Royal Highness Princess Salote Mafleopilolevu Tuita, the patron of the Tonga Breast Cancer Society, present at the Pink Luncheon. Also present in the occasion was the president of the Tonga Breast Cancer Society, Honorable Frederica Fatafehiola Pahatuita Filipe, and Lady Alaileula Tuguaho. Speaking to radio and television Tonga News, Dr. Amelia Duiplotu says some local women first seek traditional medicine before seeking advice or treatment from the hospital. We humbly ask those who are doing Tongan traditional medicine to please stop treating people that suffers from such problem because it only worsens the problem. If we work together, we will save lives. She adds that men should support also the Breast Cancer Society as they are also affected from the same cancer. It is vital for men to support. Past few years we treated men with breast cancer. The longer they leave it, the worse the pain gets. Meanwhile, a member of the Tonga Breast Cancer Society, Lita Kami, says people need to know how important it is to be treated in an early basis. We need people's support. In that way, we can convince more people to ensure early detection. The program aims at raising funds to assist the society's operation. Entertainment and giveaways was also held, attended by government and non-government organizations and others. Whanonga Vekoso for Television Tonga News.
The Fijian community in Tonga has marked 43 years of independence from the British government since 1970. A special program was held at the St Andrews College Hall on Saturday to mark the day and was attended by the acting Prime Minister, or the Deputy Prime Minister rather, Sami Vaipulu, Ratu Devi Taulula Kemamara, and the Fijian community. Linda Fide was there and filed this report.
The Fijian community performing their ritual presentation to mark the welcoming of the guests of honor. In a remarks from the acting Prime Minister, Sami Vaipulu, he says Tonga and Fiji are related in many ways.
Today it's really a Fijian day because all of us are Fijians here celebrating our day in Tonga. In the past week, coming back from Montreal, I had to stay on in Los Angeles for a funeral, which was my auntie's funeral. And they wanted me to read out the history of my auntie. In the history, it noted our part with the Blake family, but it didn't note the Fijian side. However, I said, my auntie's mum, so it's her grandmother, was born by a real Fijian named Galilea in Vava'o. And on my father's side, from the Nuku Nuku side, from the Wakano clan, I'm also Fijian from that side. And you can tell from my looks, I'm real Fijian. It is always something that we all want to celebrate, is freedom. Each and every one of us loves and cherishes freedom.
A Fijian residing in Tonga, Sevanaya Dawake, says he's happy to take part in this annual program.
For us here, it's an annual program because most of the time we are busy doing things. Most of us are on the different places. It's a good time for us to come together, gather, share, and after this, it might take another 3-4 months before we'll see each other again.
During the program, Fijian traditional songs and dances were performed to the guests. The program was wrapped up with a prayer services held at Gunsalote College Hall, attended by the Fijian community. More than 300 Fijian are currently staying and working in Tonga. For Television Tonga News, I'm Linda Filiai.
The Ministry of Health has received its first ever CT scanner for the kingdom. The computerized topology scanner and will be able to scan and identify a majority of the disease or illnesses that people obtained. The machine is worth around $1 million donated by the People's Republic of China. A special ceremony was held this week at Viola Hospital to mark the handover of the computerized topology. Linda Filiai reports.
The CT scanner is an equipment designed to identify several types of disease, including cancer and tumor, to name a few. It is one of the costly equipments at Viola. In a remarks from the Honourable Minister of Health, Lord Dui Afitu, he thanks the Chinese counterpart for this generous assistance. It is a great pleasure receiving this donation, and we are glad knowing that it will upgrade the standard of our work at the hospital. We are the first in the developing countries to receive such equipment, which has the particular high grade that it can identify the disease. This donation from the People's Republic of China is worth more than $1 million per anga. They have also built a house for the CT scanner and provide a specialist to teach the staff on how to operate this new machine. Meanwhile, scholarship will be provided for this particular field. In the meantime, Chinese Ambassador to Tonga, His Excellency Weng Donghua, says China prioritizes health issues in the kingdom and they will continue to provide similar assistance in the future.
The main purpose of the donation of the CT scanner to Tonga is to help the Tongan people because we heard before we had this CT scanner that Tonga didn't have one. And the people who needed such medical service, especially the CT scan, had to travel overseas, either to Australia or New Zealand for the CT scan or checkup, and they had to spend a lot of money on the way, on the accommodation, and the most important is they could have lost some time for a better diagnosis of the disease they suffer.
A local radiologist, Dr. Anna Kauola, says the equipment is very useful as it can identify the right pathologies or disease a person is suffering from, and the proper treatment can be given to them.
What it does, it scans the body using X-ray, which is what we use to take chest X-rays and whatnot. And then it brings pictures or images of the body, whichever part of the body that you want to X-ray. It be the head, brain, the chest, the abdomen, legs, any part of the body can be CT'd. And it can tell us pathology when we see it. Pathology is what's wrong with you.
She says this is a great improvement for the Ministry of Health.
Any disease, especially tumors, cancers, CT scan is very good for it. It picks up a lot of tumors, especially in the head. Before we had the CT scanner, we used to just look at the patient, what he presents with, if he's got and other signs to tell us, and then we'll think, oh, maybe he's got a brain tumor. Sometimes we get to send the patients over to New Zealand only to be told that it's too far, so that's just a waste of money. Whereas now, we think that someone may have a brain tumor, put them in the CT scanner, and of course it tells us this is a brain tumor.
Furthermore, a container load of medical equipment was donated by the Republic of China to the Health Ministry. The event was attended by the Health Director, Dr. Siale Akauola, Lord Tangyuf Vanukonuka, doctors, among others. Linda Filiai for Television Tonga News.
From the Magistrate Court, a ruling has been delivered to keep a Chinese woman and a man in police custody until next week. They are accused of using forged Tongan passports to depart Tonga. Kalistu Nuku reports.
Minwing is charged for possession of an illegal passport, use of an illegal passport, and a forged passport. Nai Yen Zheng is accused of abetting to commit a crime. Min Wang is alleged of arriving at Fuamotu International Airport with a Chinese passport last Friday. However, on Tuesday, she produced a Tongan passport to depart Tonga from Fuamotu Airport. The Tongan passport shows the stamp of the Tongan immigration with no signature of an officer, while the Chinese passport shows a stamp with the signature of an immigration officer. The Tongan passport also showed the same person with a different name. She was arrested at the airport. Information from airline says Min Wang used two different itineraries for both of the names used in the passport. Meanwhile, Police Commissioner Kranofi told Radio Tonga and Television Tonga News that investigation continue into the matter. The magistrate Simloni Tuakalau ruled to keep both of the accused in custody until Wednesday next week, while they will reappear in court. This was based on a request made from the prosecutor Aminias Kefu. Lucky New is the legal counsel for the accused.
The CEO for the Ministry of Commerce, Tourism and Labour, Tataf Moeaki, takes up the CEO for the Ministry of Finance and National Planning for 4 years effective from September 23, 2013. The Public Service Commission, PSC, made the appointment. Sinlato reports.
Tatafu Moeaki will replace Mr. Teofilu Sitiweti, who is now working as advisor to the World Bank in Washington. The Public Service Commission is now in the process of recruiting a new Chief Executive Officer for the Ministry of Commerce, Tourism and Labour. Meanwhile, the Minister for Commerce, Tourism and Labour, Honourable Dr. Vilamilatu, says Tatafu Moeaki has led the ministry through a growth period, increasing the ministry's direct budget resources more than threefold over the years, forged strong partnerships between government and private sectors to double registered businesses by year-end 2012. Moeaki has postgraduate qualifications in econometrics and quantitative studies. He started in the civil service at the Central Planning Department in 1995, now under the Ministry of Finance and National Planning. He was the first head of the Policy and Planning Division for the Ministry of Education to manage the inaugural implementation of the first education sector-wide approach known as the Tonga Education Support Program. Moeaki continued to be a Deputy Secretary for Foreign Affairs and took charge of the desk for the Pacific EU Asia and also acted as Deputy National Authorizing Officer for the EU 9th EDF closure and programming of the 11th EDF before his appointment to the CEO for the Ministry of Commerce, Tourism and Labour.
Vaingatone has commenced duty in his new post as Secretary General for the Ministry of Foreign Affairs and Trade. He replaces Mai Uliuli Tuponiwa, who's the Ambassador of Tonga to the United Nations. Mr. Tone took up the post October 7th after he was appointed the Lord Privy-Seal on January 2011. According to the Ministry of Information and Communications, he was previously the Secretary for Foreign Affairs. He was also a former Major from the Tonga Defence Services and a Principal Officer at the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, and later became the Deputy Secretary before taking up his current post. Mr. Tone will be responsible for Tonga's bilateral relation with foreign countries and its trade relations. Meanwhile, Viliami Malolo has been appointed as Lord Privy-Seal, who overlooks the task and meeting by Privy Council. Allegations have been made over the operations of Nautilus Minerals Tonga, which is believed to be operating illegally. The People's Representative Number 8, Sione Taione, claims that the Nautilus company is operating under the Prime Minister's office, which is not lawful. However, the Honourable Minister of Land, Survey, Climate Change, Environment and Natural Resources, Lord Ma'afu, corrected the claim made by Taione, saying that everything the company is doing, which includes obtaining a license, was made in a transparent and legal manner. Taione claims that a shareholder in the international company is Her Royal Highness Princess Bilolevu Tuita. He added that he was surprised to find the company is operating under the management of the Prime Minister's office and wondered why. The MP added that the company's research in Tonga since 2008 has not been successful and has been given an extension of 4 to 5 years to continue its operations. However, the Honourable Minister of Land and Survey, Lord Ma'afu, interrupted his statement, confirming that the company is not managed nor controlled by the Prime Minister's office, although its licensed and administered and processed was by the Prime Minister's office. The acting Prime Minister, Honourable Sami Vaipulu, also reconfirmed Lord Ma'afu's response, saying that this international company has no connection whatsoever with the PM's office. During a deliberation, the Honourable Justice Minister Clive Atwood told Daione to stop misleading the public. A suspended senior police officer, Lolesio Hausia's case, was acquitted in a magistrate this week at Fasimuyafi. This is because 3 witnesses for the prosecutor did not turn up in court to give evidence. The witnesses are Viliami Fatafehi, Eliesa Kitekei Aho, and Noah Wakalahi. Last week, the same court issued an arrest warrant for the trio, but they still did not want to appear in court as witnesses. Magistrate Similoni Tokalau dropped the charges against Hausia for assault and disturbance from an incident which occurred August 23rd this year. Hausia has been suspended since August due to some allegations made against him. He's been suspended with no pay. Previously, the Police Commissioner Grant Tofi told Radio and Television Tonga News that he will await the result of the case before making a decision. He was not available this week to make a comment on the ruling on Friday when contacted by Radio and Television Tonga. It is understood that there is a separate allegation made against Hausia which is still in the process of investigation. This one regards to money. Siona Edika was the legal counsel for Hausia, while John Puloka appeared for the prosecutor. The Vaiala Hospital's laboratory will be able to give out test results more quickly with the installation of a new chemist machine called the Cobus 311. The principal medical scientist of Vaiala Hospital, Latu Sokai, says that the new machine will improve the current status of services of the laboratory to the public. Anastia Falikano reports.
The principal medical scientist at Viola Hospital, Latu Sokai, says patients no longer have to wait for a long period of time before getting their test results. The new Cobus 311 enables test results in a matter of hours. Before, we had 2 machines which could determine test results, but there were limits to those machines. This new machine is an upgrade that enables it to process more tests quickly. It can do more than what the past equipment could do. A specialist training is held this week to educate the laboratory staff and familiarize them with the new machine. It was led by a chemist specialist from New Zealand, Ian Green.
Runs at about 3 times the speed of one of these. So the staff that are operating this analyser have been down to Auckland for training for a week, and then the analyser was shipped up. An engineer came up from our company and installed it, set up a water system behind it because it runs on pure water, and then I've been up here this week doing some extra training and the commissioning of the analyser.
According to Latu Soakai, one of the old chemist machines will be transferred to the Wellingatoni Ngu Hospital in Mava'o. The new chemist machine, Copus 311, cost more than 170 pa'anga, as it was donated by the Australian government through AusAid.
And that wrap up this evening's special edition of News with Television Tonga. Thanking you all for watching. I'm Fatai Whaingaa. Have a pleasant evening.